All right, guys, welcome back to another round of the odd League of Inches. So, once again, I just want to first of all start off by thanking everyone at the moment in terms of the support out there. The support's been fantastic, and good to know that the last video that was posted with me and my mate Sid was actually the most viewed so far by quite a margin. So, the subscribers are going up as well, which is great on the YouTube channel. So, everyone out there that's listening and putting in a bit of effort for that, I greatly appreciate it. And as I said, there's plenty more things to come in the future, more guests, looking to getting a couple of the players and past players on and things like that. So keep viewing, keep hitting that subscribe, and there's working on some things down the track in terms of a social media channel, in terms of either Facebook or Instagram. So a bit more on that to come, but look, another great round of footy so far. Obviously, one more game to go today with the Dogs and Dragons. The dreaded coach off, really. But so far, let's have a bit of a chat about what's going on so far in the week of footy. There's been a few talking points to come out of it. First of all, start off as I do with the old hats off. This week, I'm going to do a hats off to a coach. Actually, I'm going to give it to old Desi Hasler. I think that the fact that after the game, obviously it was pretty heated and people saying this and that and forward pass, not a forward pass, all that sort of thing. Man, they should have won. Man, they should have, all that sort of thing. I eagerly watch a lot of the press conferences and things like that, and just sort of get a gauge of how the coaches are feeling and that sort of thing. And you can generally, in that sort of situation, you'd expect a coach to come on and blast the refs, blast the game, things like that, especially since one of the reporters actually told Des live that the pass was apparently called forward and confirmed by the head of the game, or Graham Ensley, one of the heads. And he basically didn't seem to use it as an excuse, simply just said they weren't as good on the night as they should have. They started very slowly, which I think we can all see when we shot out to a little bit of a lead that Parramatta did. But I think it just shows great leadership for that club and why it's turned around so quickly. 2 years ago, they were with us down the bottom of the ladder, and they've come up so quickly in a fast amount of time. And I think it's because of Des Hasler, and that was my hats off for the week. I just thought the way he handled it all, especially live, getting told a lot of that information was perfect. The old Des probably kicks down the door and kicks down a couple of microphones, but he's changed a lot, and I think it's brilliant for Manly and the Seagulls. So, and it's big for me to give Manly a rap. So well done, Desi. Look, big talking point still at the moment. After the Roosters Broncos game feels like a mile away now. So absolute shellacking by the Roosters. I tell you what, the Broncos for mine are in a lot of trouble at the moment. They've got some massive issues at the club as a whole. From a fan, from an outsider's point of view, that things don't seem to add up, and they seem to continue to be the word for it would probably be that they're shooting themselves in the foot, really, in terms of how they're going about and what they're saying one week to the other. And look, at the start of the year, are they guilty of listening to their own hype? People were saying they're one of the teams to win it. All these young stars and forward pack that can't get matched, things like that. Look, I know on the weekend there were some injuries and suspensions and things like that. There's now a lack of experience there, but I look at it and go, look, last year they had these leaders at the club and said they had the experience of your Cody Nicorimas, your Maguires, Josh Maguire. They've just let go of McCullough, the hooker. You can't sit there as a club and use the excuse of no experience there when you're freely letting your experienced members go. Now, granted, they did lose Gillette as well to a medical retirement. They couldn't plan on that, so that's totally fine. But you look at the club at the moment, you look at the 1 to 17 when it's full strength, not just at the moment with a few injuries, but there's no one that stands out to me as a captain of that club. And look, if I could argue, if you look at every other 15 other clubs in there, you can at least see one player in that club that screams captaincy material. For mine, and it's first time I've ever seen it with the Broncos, is they don't have that figure there that screams, I'm the captain, let me lead these boys out, let me do what I've got to do and get this club back up to how great it has been in the past. And not just for the Broncos, but For a club that's been built on success for such a long period and had such great players in the past, I think that's a massive issue for them moving forward. Looking at their draw, they've got another couple of hard weeks to go until they get a bit of an easier run. I don't think it's going to get much easier. I think Manly's going to give them a bit of a touch up again this week. There's no effort either. Normally with young kids, we've seen it with the Knights the last 2 weeks with some of their young stars where they've got some young players in there as well, but they're setting the house on fire. They're playing two of the form teams of the comp that come over the draw and a win. Now, that shows your effort and that shows how good these youngsters are, that they want to play for the jersey and the club. I'm here stating that I don't think that most of these young ones at the Broncos are doing that. I don't see that effort. There were so many times when you go back to watch Thursday night, they're walking in defence. The try from the Roosters front rower right through the middle, his name I can't remember off the top of my head, but if the two middle forwards made a bit of effort to come in, they shut the hole down. It wasn't a massive hole he's run through. There's just no effort. There was a lot of walking around. There was no sliding defence and things like that, no covering defence. You see all the good teams, and you saw it during the weekend that the slide defence with the top teams and the teams that are there ready, wanting to play is amazing. And at the moment for the Broncos, if you're a Broncos fan, and I know I've got a lot of fans out there that support the Broncos, it's not good times. And then we hear yesterday that there's talk that they're blocking greats of the club that actually they're not allowed to come in and have a chat to the players and put their 10 cents worth in and things like that. Now, for a club rich on history and had such a great successful run throughout the 90s and early 2000s, I think that's a huge mistake they're doing now. I don't know who is behind that decision to do that, but it needs to change. It needs to change quickly. I'd be pumping that club back in with as many greats as I can get away with at the moment. Get that old mentality back into the club that was built off and going from that. That's my personal opinion on the matter. I think, as I said, there's a few more weeks until it gets fixed up, for my opinion, and they get a bit more of an easier run to perhaps play around with the squad and things like that. But let's see what sort of changes are made tomorrow and see how the club goes moving forward. Look, Manly, the old Parramatta Eels got up, which is great to see. Now, obviously the big talking point out of this one was the forward pass. And look, I thought initially, when I was first watching it, I threw the pillow on the couch and I thought, you got to be kidding me, we've lost it in the dying stages. But when I first initially looked back at the replay on Fox when it was live, I initially did understand why it was called a forward pass. I could see it. Look, there's arguments for and against, and I can probably understand both. But the thing that gets me is that there was not just that call in that game that impacted that game. Now, there was two tries that were given, try or no try, which happened for both teams, which both had a big impact on the game moving forward. Now, you could argue that Walker's try was a lost ball. He didn't actually ground it once you saw the behind view back from the dead ball line. He did lose control of the ball as it was hitting the ground, but from the other angle on the side view, it looked like he sort of had the ball still. The other one was the Kafusi try, which they ended up giving no try. Now, if they give the Walker try a try, he's had fingers on the ball the whole time on the way down to the ground. So that should have been a try as well. There's things that happen in a game of rugby league where ebbs and flows and it balances up throughout the game and throughout the season, all these sort of tight 50-50 calls. Now, we want one referee, which has been fantastic. I thought the last 2 weeks of football has been great. There is going to be that odd mistake or two, but look, it was a touch is called. The touchy was right in line with it. You see on the replay, the touch is standing right there with him. Thought it was a forward pass. It's very tight. As I said, I could see both arguments for and against it, but the other thing that gets to me with this whole thing is Graham Ensley came out very quickly after that game to hose it down and say that it was the incorrect call, it was a forward pass. Now, not just in that game, as I just pointed out, but in games weekly, we see calls that are very tight, that are deciding games and things like that, and very rarely do we see the NRL come out so quickly, especially, and put something down. I thought that was very odd timing to come out and say that. I don't think that was a very good look. I think that you need to be back in your refs, especially at the moment with this new one ref system. Look, come out later if you want to, but this is the point where this is stepping on a fine line here, is what they're going to do. They've got to come up with a way where they tell us each week as fans that they can't have the bunker rule on forward passes because they don't have the camera technology to look at forward passes and be able to tell for sure if they are or not. How can Graham Ensley come out 20 minutes after the game and be so sure that that wasn't a forward pass when he continues to tell us each week in his weekly wrap-ups of games and things like that the bunker can't decide on forward passes because we don't have the technology to do so? Now, what way are you going to go, brother? Because to me and to a lot of us fans out there, you're sending a lot of mixed signals with what you can and can't do. So I advise get that fixed up before you come out and make some big statements like that when you're telling us week to week you can't look at that sort of thing. So just again, my thoughts, and drop a comment below what you think. Another thing that I want to quickly point on is that the HIA rule. I've noticed it over time. I noticed again on the week. I noticed again last night is that I think teams are taking advantage of this rule at the moment. Look, the Tigers with Luke Garner got hit in the Adam's apple. He got hit in the Adam's apple and he came off for a HIA. So apparently, Adam's apple impacts your skull and gives you a concussion if you get hit here. Look, it would have been an uncomfortable feeling. It would have been a knock to the throat, which makes him feel uncomfortable, no doubt, painful injury. It definitely wasn't a concussion or a HIA ruling. Yet clubs, and this isn't just the Tigers, the trainers and the clubs are taking advantage of. We want to reduce the interchange. We want to make this a quicker game as possible. We want to tire out the middleman and introduce the little men more into the game, which is slowly happening, and it's great to see. I'm a massive fan of it, as I've already stated. But this is now getting into a stage where it's going to be dangerous. You're going to have to either really clamp down this, and I think there needs to start being outside people that that manage the HIA rules. I think it's a very fine line that clubs are going to continue to manipulate the system and get these extra, because if you see it, each game there's probably 2 or 3 to 4 HIAs a game, which means a player comes off, which is a HIA sub, and a player has to come back on after 15 minutes or within 15 minutes of the HIA ruling. That's another free sub. So there's effectively 2 free subs per change of that player. So at the moment we have 8. There's talk it's going to go down to 6 next year. Now, at the moment, you're probably up towards about 12, 14 interchanges once you look at the HIAs and how it all goes. So another thing that I think the game needs to look at moving forward. So many great rules at the moment that we're playing, and the games are looking so much better. I'm still loving it. But there's little things here that we can tweak, and I think at the moment we've got the right man with Peter V'landys at the top to just look at and see where we can make some changes to really nut this down and make it the greatest game of all, which I think it already is, but for the outside fans out there to really knuckle down and just improve those games, the little 1%ers, to just get everything going the way it should be. Last point, just want a bit of a congratulations to a couple of teams out there that I thought played amazing on the weekend. It was good to see them get a win. First off, the Knights. I think the Knights once again proved that's a massive scalp, the Raiders. Goes back to what I was talking about last week in terms of the Raiders' travel, not having that home game each week. I think it's going to really hurt them. They have to go to Campbelltown, so that's, 2.5 hours from Canberra. It's not really a home game at all. And they just looked a little bit slow. I think it was a hard game last week against the Storm, and the travel, and probably a little bit weary in the legs with all that, a little bit tired, and they just didn't seem to sort of be there. But I thought the Knights played amazing, up-tempo footy. Ponga and Pearce just put on a show. And young Bradman Best is looking fantastic after just a handful of first-grade games. He's definitely one to look out for moving forward. So congratulations to them. The last team would be the Gold Coast Titans. So up here on the Gold Coast myself, and it was fantastic to see them get that win up finally. I think it was 364 days without a win. So today would have been a whole year without a win, which for a club and for its members and fans would have hurt a lot to get to that milestone. But I'm glad they did it. They actually played really well. There was a lot of times there where they could have just ended up throwing in the towel after being behind by 10 points for 2 stages of that game, and they didn't. This week, I bagged them a bit last week on the passion and things like that. I seen that this week. Seen with a few of the changes that were made, a lot of people showing a lot more passion. Ashley Taylor for one, every time he set up a try, did something, you could see that passion in his eyes, and he was just as happy to get things going. But a big, it was almost a hats off to this guy. Actually, I'm going to break my rule. I'm going to do a second hats off. This is how big this is. Second hats off to young Tonamapia. A lot of people might not remember this guy, but he used to play with the Storm, and a couple of years back he went on a Mormon mission, came back, basically being accelerated into the Titans team. He spotted there was probably a chance for him to come back and play centre there, and they've taken him on, which I'm sure they're glad they have now. But he came back last night, and honestly, he was pretty much the best player on the field, and it looked like he hadn't missed a beat. It looked like he'd been playing for the last few years, and honestly, tremendous effort, tremendous game from him, and it was, as I said, it's a hats off performance. I'm just doing a double, throwing the rules out the window here, and that's that. So look, guys, I've taken up enough of your time, and appreciate once again all the support. Drop a comment below if you have any questions you want me to answer in the next video. Enjoy the footy this afternoon, or your New South Welshmen's on public holiday. Enjoy safely, and have a couple of drinks watching the footy, get a pizza around, things like that. But have a good afternoon, guys, and tune in next time. Cheers.